falling in love, deeper than that.
There's something very difficult to stomach about the vast arsenal of indie bands, part of a subculture that leeches off musical styles of the past and forgets to reappropriate them for anything mildly idiosyncratic, like a nostalgia-blinded mosquito that couldn't be bothered doing its homework properly. We're all inspired by our contemporaries, but perhaps the best idea is to adapt a Trojan horse strategy. Emerge with a similar sound to somebody else, very inconspicuously, and then out you come, to reveal who you truly are. The breaking point for me was when the band Boy Pablo came around the block and missed the point entirely, dressing the Trojan horse in overalls, a baseball cap and a ciggy, but then once the real band clambered out of it to reveal themselves, they too were wearing overalls, a baseball cap and a ciggy. What's the point in imitation? And worse yet, if you refuse to develop this, staying stuck in the squelchy vat of indie kid branded quicksand. The only band more insulting in this sense is Cigarettes After Sex, whose new album reminds me of what it's like to part ways with the annoying, mildly problematic kids at high school, then seeing them again several years later and realizing they haven't changed, or become any less of a potential sex pest. I reviewed Durries After Dick in 2017, with the disappointment that their slow, atmospheric, sensual, neo-noir style got tiring to sit with over the course of a full album, even though Greg Gonzalez's androgynous and pillowy voice is perfect for a Mazzy Star-inspired dream pop album, and their ability to write a sweet-sounding melody is actually on point. But in retrospect, the uncomfortably horny lyrics sound like the daydreams of a voyeur being whispered into your ear with the seductive ability of gas station shrimp. One entire song was based on watching a sex tape. My hair in that review was more aesthetically pleasing, but 2 years later, never before has the quality gap between their music and their lyrics been vast enough to accommodate an entire flea market. Gonzalez writes these songs like somebody who hasn't talked to another human being in months, silently but surely objectifying each woman in his lovebird fantasy, shattering the genuinely convincing, misty, Lynchian atmosphere with baffling lines about drinking Slurpees, peach baseball caps, and forgetting about all the rich fuckboys. Lyrics that drop like steel shot put balls on a car windscreen and attempt to hide the mess with a flimsy sheet of cardboard with wistful love song scribbled on it with Sharpie. The gist is that this album is woeful, though some songs are more passable than others because they might not necessarily have as many voyeuristic, shallow lines that tend to distract from the genuinely well-conceived dream pop music that's otherwise wasted on Gonzalez's inability to write a song that doesn't make me want to call an Uber home. The final track describes an intimate encounter, of which afterwards, the narrator can't stop thinking about how he finally saw titty. And unlike other awkward but kitschy attempts at emulating the loserdom of creepy love in a comedic or ironic fashion, Blunts After Bumming seem pretty fucking sincere, which is pretty sad. I have been saving it for last, but the album hits a mind-boggling low when the track Hentai begins, where verse 1 describes his favourite anime porn to his lover, which already instills a complete disconnect from reality, which only explains why verse 2 has him describing his preferred choice of death, which understandably and unsurprisingly upsets her. But more on that first bit, the song is literally called fucking Hentai. It reminisces on it like it's a bloody yearbook memory. I can't even fathom the concept of writing something like this, let alone for a band on the Partisan record label. It would still be embarrassing if the music had been fronted by an edgy, solitary songwriter on SoundCloud with a more web forum-centric audience, closer to the crusty dregs of 4chan subcultures and an overwhelming surplus of Overwatch smut. But I'd probably be less surprised then. But at least this track does a decent job of summarising the paper-thin sexual fantasies that comprise the majority of Huffing After Chuffing's music, without a single shred of irony or insight, and bundled with a shit ton of pillow fluff instead, and then they rip off a chunk of the pillow fluff and feed it to you constantly, whispering into your ear,
"Do you like what you hear?"
I've heard better sweet talk in a pop-up ad.